And good morning and welcome to News 8 at 9. Good morning, Texas. We've got a real treat for you coming up today. A focus on Yosemite National Park. It's known as nature's Grand Cathedral. 1,200 square miles of natural beauty. And there are a couple of men joining us this morning who have put together a film called The Spirit of Yosemite. And we're going to talk to them about the labor of love it was putting that film together and why it is so important to protect the national parks, particularly Yosemite. Welcome back. If you have ever been to Yosemite National Park, and even if you haven't, you know the natural wonders there are so great that they can make you feel insignificant standing next to them. Well, now the incredible sights and sounds of that park have been captured in a documentary-style film called Spirit of Yosemite. David Vassar and Bob Hansen join us now to talk about it. That's David, that's Ben, right?
Bob.
David,
you had it right the first time.
David and Bob, I'm sorry, I don't know where I got Ben from. Hey, I know that we're all kind of a little overdressed to be standing in front of Half Dome and El Capitan here, but
lovely.
It's a wonderful set. It's good to talk to you both, and this is a really fascinating movie, I think, because it does capture the spirit of Yosemite. What does that mean to you, David? Let's start with you first.
Well, I think everybody who goes to Yosemite has a first response, particularly if it's your first time there. You get a little weak in the knees. It's a little overwhelming. It's sort of like walking up to the edge of the Grand Canyon and peering in, and then getting back to the car and driving away. You know you've seen something spectacular, but you really don't have a connection. So The Spirit of Yosemite was a film that we tried to create that would forge a connection between the visitor to the park and the place.
And that, as an educator, Bob, you know that it's important to kind of get that out there and get people to understand and be cognizant of the importance of the sheer size and value of the park. Is that true?
Yes, and one of the other elements that this movie had to achieve was to tell the basic themes about the history and natural history of Yosemite. Why was it created? Why was it preserved? And who were the people behind its preservation and who's doing things now. It's a story not just about majesty and landscapes, it's the whole story of Yosemite.
Talk a little bit about the history of this park if you can, because it goes all the way back to Abe Lincoln and the importance back then, recognizing the importance of how rare and special that region was.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln set aside Yosemite Valley, a small part of what became Yosemite National Park, and a little piece of giant sequoia groves in the south of Yosemite Valley in 1864, long before the first national park was ever established, as the first preserved natural area in the United States. And that was managed by the state of California for a number of years, and then eventually, with the assistance of John Muir, that was wrapped into what became Yosemite National Park, the size of the state of Rhode Island.
You know, it's amazing to me when you look at it and you think back in the 1860s, the industrial and population pressures that did not exist back then that we have now. You know, to kind of put it in that context and realize that the pressures now must be so much greater.
Well, that's true, but I think even more interesting is the fact that when the park was first set aside in 1864, you have to remember that the Sierra Nevada was in the heart of the California gold rush.
Right.
People were open pit mining and taking out some really, really big trees. So in many ways, although we feel the pressures from population now, the pressures in the Sierra Nevada when Yosemite was first set aside, I think were actually even greater.
Yeah,
because
that's a
the
good
threat
point.
meant that if you didn't set aside, you were definitely going to lose it. At least now we have a little more intelligence. We're doing things with a little more sensitivity, so that we're trying to find a way to sort of live with the land and at the same time accommodate the 350 million people who live here now. So
yeah, that's right.
California has 35 million people now. So
it's incredible, and you know there's many more coming from all across the country to see it. You've produced and directed a number of different projects. A lot of people will recognize your work on Unsolved Mysteries. But what was it about Yosemite that really kind of struck you at the heart?
Well, it's a personal story for me, and it has to do with the fact that when I was 16 or 17 years old, I found myself in the park hiking, and I think anyone who's 16 or 17-year-old is going through some significant changes. And I went through some significant changes in Yosemite and fell in love with the place. And 30 years later, came back and made the film. So.
Well, we're sure glad you did. Bob, tell us about what you're going to use this film for. It's not just pretty pictures, obviously, right?
Two things. The primary reason for our organization to sponsor the creation of this film was to put this on daily showing every half hour in the visitor center in Yosemite Valley. And we also sponsored the remaking of the auditorium into a theater that could properly show this film. That's what this whole project was about, so that people would go to Yosemite, go to the visitor center, and they would get some sense of what the park is all about, its history and natural history, not just the valley.
And then get out and experience it for themselves, too, right?
I mean, we were talking a little bit about connection before, and I think if, you know, there is the overwhelming sense of place that you get from standing there. But if you understand the geological processes, the human history of the place, the forces that created the beauty there, when you experience the beauty, not only are you overwhelmed by its visual presence, but you're overwhelmed by the power and energy that created the place.
Well, we sure are glad that you guys made the film. It's beautiful to see beautiful images and wonderful work. So thanks so much. And good luck with the Yosemite Fund, which helps pay for all of that good stuff.
Absolutely.
That's the idea, yes.
All right.
Thank
you very much. And again, the name of David Vassar and Bob Hansen's film is Spirit of Yosemite. There will be an exclusive screening tonight at the Sun to Moon Gallery in Carrollton. You guys know what time that is? We'll see if we can get it by the end of the show. Debbie and Catherine, back to you.
Okay, breathtaking pictures.
So pretty there.